all you folks joining us to, I guess it would be the noon hour there in Texas. But here I'm on the East Coast. I'm Tom Fisher. Not actually in the East Coast. I'm in the Midwest. So I'm Tom Fisher. I'm the URISA board president. My day job is with Cuyahoga County. For those that aren't familiar with where that is in Ohio, it's Cleveland. So right on the beautiful north coast of America on Lake Erie. I am the GIS administrator here, and have been here for about 6 years. My career with URISA started back in the early 2000s. Was in Missouri, then moved back here to Ohio, originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So that's a little bit about me. Let me kind of orient you on the slides here real quick. You could see your logo in the upper right-hand corner, but right next to it, you'll see the yellow rose of Texas, right? So as I go through this presentation, you'll see places where I place that yellow rose, indicating that that's a tie-in with Texas, right? So we've got a number of representatives and folks that, that Texas plays an important part in URISA organization. So I wanted to signify those as we go through. And then along the bottom, you'll see the URISA logo, but then you'll see GIS Pro Portland, Maine, and the hashtag GIS Pro 2024. In the lower right-hand corner, you'll see the New England URISA logo. So that's the chapter that will be sponsoring GIS Pro in Portland, Maine, here coming up in October. And so that's really what the slide deck is indicating here. So I'm at the intersection of GIS leadership, advocacy, and learning. So let's talk about URISA. What I will do is I'll go over the 2022-23 highlights of the organization from at the parent organization level. Events and activities that we've had over the course of the year. Then we'll also talk about a little bit about upcoming activities that you may be interested in and attending. We'll dive into the structure of the organization as it currently is, as well as committees. And committees are really the vector by which you all can become active in the URISA organization at the national level. We encourage, if you see a committee in here that strikes your interest, definitely reach out. These committees meet once a month, and we'll talk a little bit about those. Chapters. Texas is a chapter, but we have a number of other chapters, and we'll be talking a little bit about I'll talk a little bit about chapters and what they mean to the organization and how we're going to try to grow those. And then some forward thinking for the organization. What do we have in store during my presidency here? So the URISA highlights. One of the things that we're in the process of doing is a branding and marketing discovery. We kicked that off back in Baltimore about 3 years ago, actually, now. And we've been engaged in this process of figuring out who we are as an organization, what our market share, what our market is, who it is that we serve, and really kind of coming up with an identity for the organization. URISA, as I think most people know, stands for the Urban Regional Information Systems Association. Some people believe that may be a little bit outdated of a moniker for us, maybe doesn't adequately describe what it is that we do. So again, we're really kind of trying to figure that out. We started that in earnest this year by hiring a firm. I'll talk a little bit about that as we get down in the presentation here. Board governance was something else that we tackled as a board. So one of the things that we learned through the American Society for Association Executives is that a couple of things. A board speaks as one voice. So when we get together and we deliberate and discuss issues that come up for a vote, as not being a public entity, we're still a private 501c3 nonprofit. We've decided this year that we would close the board meetings except for open invitations to attend and present to the board. And the reason and rationale behind that is again, we speak as one voice as a board. We want to encourage the debate and deliberation and don't want people to be discouraged for fear that they may be singled out for their thoughts and opinions, right? So when a vote occurs, if we pass or don't pass, a certain issue, we decided that we want to do that, have that freedom of debate and deliberation. Now, a little bit controversial because we've had presidents, past presidents of the organization want to attend and just sort of follow along. We've decided that, and that moving forward, we're going to do town halls, right? So any of the decisions that we make, we're going to give you the rationale, the background, the discussion, the reasons why we decided to do what we did as a board, and using that as opposed to opening it up and really changing the outcome by, I guess maybe, I want to call it intimidation, but, I guess people could feel intimidated to speak their mind or, for fear of reprisal. So allied and affiliated organization strategies, as you all know, that there are a number of different GIS organizations out there at the federal, state, local levels. Some that are GIS adjacent, some actually are organizations that do things similar to URISA. So we developed a strategy for us to become, allied or affiliated with these organizations. One being an example is IAAO, the auditors or assessors organization. We actually host a conference together called ValTech every year. So that would be an affiliated organization that we have an agreement and memorandum of understanding, and we co-sponsor events like that. So we came up with that strategy. We began discussing chapter expansion. So for those in the know, we spent about 17 years trying to align chapters up underneath the URISA parent organization, and we were successful a number of years ago. And Texas being one of those chapters that signed a charter agreement, right, to be partnered with other chapters under the URISA branding and logo. What we've decided, what we hadn't done yet was how were we going to expand to areas where we don't currently have chapters. And so we started and began that discussion of strategy, and it's still ongoing. So if you have an interest in that area, please contact me, and I will let you know how to become involved in that chapter discussion. We refreshed the content of our GIS Leadership Academy, and we're updating the design of the presentations as well. The Leadership Academy is really one of our marquee offerings. It's very well respected and attended by GIS professionals. We host them around the country, and so we decided to actually launch a second iteration of it called GLA, or GIS Leadership Academy 2, where we go into more depth and more discussion on a number of issues like return on investment, things like that. And again, that will launch here in 2024. It actually will take place in Chicago, and I'll give you the specific dates here, on in the presentation. And then the Geospatial Data Act amendment. So there was an amendment. You would think that geospatial data would have a fairly clean and clear definition. Well, in fact, it did not as it relates to this legislation. And so URISA and our Policy Advisory Committee came together and debated, deliberated, and made recommendation to the board for a letter to legislators on how to define geospatial data. And then our first URISA annual report came out. If you go to our website, you'll be able to find it there. We are in the process of putting together our second one right now, and should be put together and released sometime here in January. So we're recapping and with more specificity what I've kind of gone over here. So URISA by the numbers as far as our events are concerned. So starting in 2022, that's usually when our year starts, is at GIS Pro in October. And in Boise, we had 425 attendees at that conference. The conference typically draws more locally. And so when from year to year, you'll see, quite a few more attendees in the Boise, Idaho area, whereas in Columbus, you saw more folks from Ohio. But there is a significant national and international draw to the conference. The LEAP conference, which is, I believe, Location, Enterprise Addressing, and Public Safety, it stands for. We had a virtual conference and 108 folks participated, well, actually logged in. And there were a number of watch parties that were put together for organizations. We actually allowed for organizational watch parties. So that number was significantly, I would say significantly, but it was higher than the 108 logins that we actually had. Valtech, you'll see that was held in Las Vegas, 319. The Leadership Academies fluctuate a little bit down in Charlotte at 33, but it's typically between 30 and 50. I think 50 is actually the max. We want to keep the class size limited. And then culminating in the GIS Pro in Columbus, Ohio, my home state, we had 433, just edging out Boise, Idaho. So, and well, yeah, so this is, these are the events. You'll see these cards that Wendy Nelson and headquarters puts together, kind of announcing our different events that we have. So let's talk a little bit about the board of directors, your current board of directors. As you know, I am president of the board right now. But one thing that I want to point out is the diversity of this board. I think we've done a really great job of diversifying the board from in all areas, quite frankly. John Nolte is our president-elect. He's from Colorado. Ashley Hitt is our past president from Kentucky. Texas Tim Nolan, at least that's what I like to call him. He's our secretary, and he's from Texas. You'll see the little rows there. And then Judy Colby George is our treasurer, and she's from Maine. A number of the other folks. A couple that I want to point out. Sid Pandey is he is actually fulfilling Bernadette de Leon's unexpired term, and so that's why he's actually on the board. And we also have Amber, and I always mispronounce her name, so I'm not even going to try, quite frankly. But she is the chapter representative. So she represents chapters' interests at the board. She's an ex officio board member, which means she doesn't actually have a vote, but she is able to represent the interests of the chapter perspective at the board level. We do have two international board members. Stacy Corbett is from Alberta, Canada, and Josiah Burkett is from St. Kitts and Nevis. So truly an international organization and board. So the one thing that I want to talk about is what are the board's responsibilities? So, do we just get together and hoop it up and have a great time? No, we actually have responsibilities. We meet every month for an hour and a half, and then 2 times a year in person. But we have a fiduciary responsibility, and went to the American Association of, or the American Society for Executives Association, or Association Executives, I'm sorry. ASAE is the acronym. And we learned what fiduciary means. A lot of people think it's financial, but it isn't. Fiduciary means to hold in trust. And so there's really 3 pillars to any board. And those are a duty to care, a duty of obedience, and a duty of loyalty. So what does that mean? Well, a duty to care means a couple of things. It means that your board members are to be informed and ask questions at these meetings, right? The duty of care describes the level of competence that is expected of a board member and is commonly expressed as the duty of care that an ordinary prudent person would exercise in a like position under similar circumstances. It means that the board member owes the duty to exercise reasonable care when he or she makes a decision as a steward of the URISA organization. So that's the duty of care. What is duty of obedience? That requires board members to be faithful to the organization's mission. So we have a strategic plan and a mission, and we are to be obedient to that. They are not permitted to act in a way that is inconsistent with the central goals of the organization. Really it's, we deal in apples. And so if you introduce an orange that isn't a part of our central goal, then that's that's not adhering to the duty of obedience. So really it's about GIS, and it's about leadership in the GIS profession. And that's really what we need to stick to, right, as our discussions are based. And it's a basis of rule that lies in public trust that the organization will manage donated funds to the full organization's mission. We won't be investing in an oyster farm in New England or something like that, right? So duty of loyalty is to show undivided allegiance to the organization's welfare. It's a standard of faithfulness a board member must give undivided allegiance when making decisions affecting the organization. A board member can never use information obtained as a member for personal gain and must act in the best interest of the organization. And finally, the board member must comply with policies regarding codes of conduct and ethical behavior. So that really speaks to all boards, but just so that you understand what guides us as a board is those three fiduciary responsibilities or pillars of being a board member. So if that gives you a little sense of what it is, our guidance or our guiding light as being on the board here. So committees. The board's responsibility overall is to really develop the strategy, right, for the organization. So to bring those perspectives in from me, from county government, being in the profession for over 29 years, and just experience, to help guide the organization and bring perspective. And so everybody that you saw there is bringing their own unique perspective in the debate and deliberation. And so as we come up with this strategy, one of the things that we must do is clearly define the strategic plan and the goal for URISA. And these committees that I've outlined here, they're the ones that are responsible for boots on the ground, doing, I guess we would consider the work to fulfill the strategic plan, right? So I want to talk a little bit about a few of them: the Chapter Development and Relations Council, the GIS Core Committee. That's a tongue twister, but marketing and membership, which are kind of tied together, right? The Pro Equity and Anti-Racism. This was born a number of years ago for our organization, and we really take this seriously. Pro Equity, Anti-Racism. They are really our litmus test for most of the things that we debate and deliberate. We want to get the perspective that maybe we don't all necessarily have when it relates to the Pro Equity, Anti-Racism lens. Professional Education Committee. URISA's one of its core principles is education, and so that is a very key committee within our organization. Policy Advisory Committee. As a 501c3, we're not permitted to lobby, but we can exert some influence, right? With policy or what do I want to say? Advocating on a position, right? And so the Policy Advisory Committee is made up of a broad spectrum of very seasoned GIS professionals, and they're the ones that take legislative acts, such as the Geospatial Data Act, debate, discuss, and make recommendations to the board as to what URISA's perspective should be, and whether or not we should enter the fray, so to speak. Not lobby, but give our thoughts and opinions on it. And then the Vanguard Cabinet, that is the young professionals, and these guys do great work. The Vanguard Cabinet is something you apply for as a young professional, and then people are selected to sit on this. It's a 3-year group, but I'll get more into that as we talk about committees and task forces. So membership and marketing. What do? They advance membership growth, retention, benefits by promoting URISA membership through marketing communications efforts, right? So that's really one of the things. Those things are presentations like this, right? Talking a little bit about the organization and our structure. Lean coffee. Tim Nolan is, if you don't know Tim, well, I'd be surprised if you don't know Tim. Everybody knows Tim, but Tim is, he's great at, the Miro board and lean coffee, and he has a unique set of talents that URISA is able to tap into, and this is just one of them. He goes to lean coffee. I believe it's like once a month. Just a way to engage people, members, and we have book club. So for all you bookworms, they actually select a book once a month, and they meet on a Friday and they discuss. It's just like any other book club, but the topics tend to be around GIS, but they can be in the realm of leadership and can be in the realm of mentoring and other office related or professional related discussion points, right? So it's pretty interesting. And club. Rachel Rodriguez and Tim Nolan are really spearheading that effort. We do have seasonals, so we had a jingle mingle during December, but we may have something for Valentine's Day. We may have something, for other times of the year where we can get together virtually. You can have coffee, a cocktail, whatever, and it's just free and open discussion, right? We try to keep the politics out of it and keep it light and airy, and it's kind of fun. And then finally, the real thing that they've been working on here, it's sort of tangible, is that branding and marketing discovery with a Niger Design group. We did get a report from them just recently. It was the end of last year. And we are still working through sort of what does it mean? Who are we as an organization? It could mean changing the name. It could mean changing the logo. It could mean that we don't change anything. But definitely this is something that we've been taking a look at, definitely post-COVID, right? And it's an ever-changing industry, right? We're technology-based on technology changes, and maybe our organization does as well, but you don't know unless you really sit down and evaluate it. So this pro-equity and anti-racism pair committee that we have really was born out to help guide and put that lens of the lens that we may not otherwise put to some of our debates and deliberations. And so it really is to advance and achieve what URISA is already committed to, right? So we already commit to being pro-equity and anti-racist organization. And so it's really kind of putting our money where our mouth is, right? So we say we are, but what does that mean in tangible results? And so that's really what the overarching is for this group. It's leadership from unrepresented groups within society. So we do tap into those people that may be underrepresented or are underrepresented to be on this group here to give their perspective. There are 6 to 12 members, again, who have knowledge and are committed to the pro-equity and anti-racism practices, right? So it's not just, again, saying we are, but, some rubber meets the road kind of things. And then the board of directors passes proposals and policies through PAIR. So we just had we have a thing called the GIS Hall of Fame, and there's a selection process for Hall of Fame that our past presidents reevaluated, and that reevaluation doesn't get accepted and debated and discussed at the board level, but it also gets passed through to PAIR for their debate, discussion, deliberation, and for their recommendations of things, again, from that pro-equity, anti-racist lens. So Vanguard Cabinet, mentioned them. There are young professionals really going through the list. In order to be a member of the Vanguard Cabinet, 35 years or younger, we do have a young professional membership level, which I believe is currently at $125, $195 for just your standard professional registration with the organization. So those fall in line, right? It's 35 years and younger. They do also offer voice and guidance to URISA. They're the upcoming, the people, the most recent people into the industry. And so they're kind of bringing that fresh new look and perspective that some old curmudgeons like me don't have, and really, really appreciate the fact that they do that for us. They do a lot of collaboration with the board of directors. When we meet at GIS Pro, they're also meeting, but they work to help us understand the programs and and policies that benefit or would benefit a younger demographic in our profession. There are 9 members. Again, it is applicant driven. So, and the leadership development committee are the ones that actually review the applicants on an annual basis and select those members that they believe would rise and contribute a lot to this group. Applications are due in the springtime. It fluctuates, so I would ask you to check out the website for that. They are selected in late summer, and then they begin their cohort, as I believe what they call them, in the fall at GIS Pro. And it's a 3-year commitment. And so it's really the 3-year commitment is, learn, act, and mentor, right? So that's sort of the process of you come in, you kind of get your, put your feet on the ground and sort of understand how things are going. Then the second year you lead and you sort of take that leadership role. In the third year, you're really mentoring and, those that follow in your footsteps, right? So that's really the reason for the 3-year commitment. But you do a lot in that 3 years. These folks at Vanguard, they have a lot of great initiatives. I think as any committee, they meet more times in a month than, because they have a number of subcommittees that they actually have created as well. So they meet probably 5 times within a month. It's pretty remarkable. Who are they? Well, you can see here that we have diversity. New York, Minnesota, Tennessee, all across the country. Even Botswana. So again, the international flavor is here for within URISA. The one thing that I will note is that Texas is not represented here in this year's cohort, but that doesn't mean that somebody from Texas, somebody on this call, can't apply. We are always looking for good young applicants to sit on the Vanguard cabinet. You get to meet a lot of folks from across the country and develop great relationships, right? I mean, professional relationships with the people that are kind of speak your own language, speak the same language, right? You're all about the in the same age group, but probably coming from a new to the profession type of language, right? So it's and things that I hear from folks are it's a great way to really kind of get your get exposure in the industry and also meet a number of people that such as myself that have been in the industry for a long time, right? So they have 2 competitions, and these are QR codes. These are active, so if you want to take a picture of them. The mentoring network is something, and I actually just heard about this today, how great it is. There's mentor mentee. So if you happen to be a 29-year professional and want to be a mentee, we need people to sign up from that perspective. But we also are, anybody that's new to the profession that wants to have, a discussion about the industry, or maybe some, I guess more of a seasoned approach, if it not even just necessarily with GIS, but professionalism, right? Again, mentoring is something that we help you develop a relationship with that other person to where you become not just, professional friends, if you will, right? Colleagues, but also have a resource to add to your portfolio of people to reach out to if you have questions about certain things, right? We want them to be more long lasting, just the year of the mentoring. And then the digital competition, I think they're doing some changes to that maybe this year. But yeah, it's an opportunity for students and young emerging professionals to showcase their projects and win, I wouldn't say prestigious awards, but definitely get recognition. So pretty awesome. Our Policy Advisory Committee, the board established the Policy Advisory Committee in 2008. Again, it's charged with recommending formal policy positions on matters that pertain directly to URISA's mission, do not involve partisan political lobbying or direct support of a political party or candidate. So we are a nonpartisan organization, and we are also not permitted to lobby. So we don't have a lobbyist. We just advocate. And they raise and review a position and make position recommendations in accordance with established procedures of the committee. So there's a whole guidance structure that they follow, and they've done a number of really good things. For one, at Pennsylvania, we didn't have a chapter there, but there was an effort in Pennsylvania to prevent GIS professionals from practicing GIS. It's something we've always heard. And the state legislature was looking to enact a law that said that if you aren't, a registered land surveyor, then you weren't allowed to practice GIS, and URISA actually put together a friend of the court brief or an advocacy piece and sent it to the legislature, and the legislation did not move forward. Not to say that it was because of URISA, but I'm sure that one piece of the puzzle really is that there is a professional organization explaining why licensure is not necessary in many of the things that we do, because we're a lot more diversified than just putting points on a map, right? Let's see. PAC is outward focused on policy issues relevant to URISA members and geospatial professionals, so really does impact you. It's like real world scenarios that impact you that they focus on. It is a resource to chapters. So if Texas has any legislation that comes up or is faced with, and it's any chapter, but Texas, there's legislation that's being introduced that may have an adverse effect on GIS and geospatial industry. Our PAC members are there to learn more about it. If you reach out to them, they don't necessarily track every state legislature, but if you reach out to them, they will take up the information, the data, and create a position piece on it. So some pretty intelligent folks on that committee. And they do develop white papers as well, right? This is one that, again, back to the Pennsylvania issue, but we just recently were reached out to by the National Congress on Examinations for Engineers and Surveyors. And so what they asked is for URISA to sit on a committee that they were starting to introduce licensure for GIS professionals. And so our policy advisory committee identified 4 people to sit on that committee. URISA's position really is that credentialing or licensure for GIS is maybe not necessary from the perspective that we deal with more than just putting points on a map, right? So a lot of data governance, data issues, presentation, public interaction, a number of different things that we deal with aside from just locating things on the map, right? Analytics, planning, that type of thing. Professional Education Committee, really these guys do a lot of great work as well. They are right now, one of the things, and I didn't even put this on here, but they're looking at developing more of an ethics workshop, right? Geospatial or GIS ethics. As you know, maybe the GIS CI has an ethics, a code of ethics. URISA follows that same code of ethics, but ethics is a tricky issue, right? There's black, there's white, and then there's this gray area, right? And so they want to put together some guidance, education materials related to, and do a workshop on ethics, right? How to identify it, how to react to it, how to mitigate it, those types of things. But they do webinars, and the webinars, this is just some of them are coming up. The Excellence in GIS webinar series are really the ESIG awards, the Exemplary Systems in GIS awards that are, URISA gives out every year. So each of those award winners give a presentation, a more in-depth presentation on their project that they submitted. but a lot of work in FEMA area as well. Then there's also these certified workshops, right? Half day, full day. Texas actually, as being a chartered organization, gets one of these. Now, it can be held virtually, but it also can be held in person. It is a way for chapters to raise revenue, potentially. But they are certified workshops. It takes a long time for them to be developed and certified by the PEC. Another thing that the Professional Education Committee is working on from a technology perspective is an LMS, a learning management system. So it keeps track of all of the workshops, webinars, and things that you do with URISA, so that for your GISP points, maybe even just to maybe for your work folio, right? You can print this off and provide the LMS documentation for your continuing ed. The GIS Core, always looking for volunteers here. This is an awesome part of URISA. These guys do amazing things, as you can see, all around the world, right? Currently, there's 3 missions in progress. When I gave this presentation back in November, there were 4. So one is actually come to completion, which is pretty awesome. You can see that they have 99 volunteered hours. So this QR code that's in the center, if you're interested in becoming a volunteer, folks from all across the country participate. I mean, all across the country, all across the world participate in this. And there is some opportunity, for travel for those that, that have the experience to offer in certain areas, underserved and underprivileged areas of the world, right, that need our help. Our Leadership Academy, like I said, it's one of our marquee offerings. And it's for those that, whether you're public sector or your private sector, doesn't matter. We teach the, best practices of leadership from both. And it's really delivered in person, which I think is great because it increases your network of professional relationships, right? People that you get to meet. Again, it draws locally pretty heavily. So these are people in your own backyard that you build a relationship over the 4 days of workshop. So actually it's 4.5 actually. As you can see, Yellow Rose of Texas there, they're coming to Fort Worth here November 18th, 22nd, 2024. I don't believe registration is open yet. But there is the QR code. If you're interested, take a snapshot of that and it'll take you right to the Leadership Academy page. Again, this Advanced GIS Leadership Academy, you must have taken the first one in order to go to the second one. But we're really kicking this off in Chicago, home of URISA. That's where our headquarters are. We're going to be doing it there. And then hopefully what we can do is offer it, as more demand becomes, as there is more demand, we'll be able to actually add additional offerings within a year. So this is really the start of GLA 2. Chapters. So Texas is represented here. I will note, though, that California decided to break Texas's string of chapter of the year. Texas was on a roll. They had 2 chapter of the year awards, and then California said, well, we're not taking that very well, so they decided to step in and step it up. I will say, though, that Texas is really the Texas chapter is the chapter that sets the standard, so to speak, that I think everybody wants to follow. This offering, me speaking here today, sort of meta, but it is one of the reasons why you guys excel at being a chapter is you make offerings like this to your membership and to not just your membership, but to the GIS community at large, right? But you can see that we have a number of chapters and international as well. But we are going to be starting to develop a strategy for how to grow the number of chapters. And that could take many forms, right? Some people think they should be urban centers. Some people think they should be single states. Others think that they should be regional, multi-state. Texas is big enough to be its own country. So I think, I think you guys are the perfect size. Same with California. We also have this technology team that we've introduced this year. We're a technology organization, right, based in around GIS. And so what we really need to do is make sure that our technology offerings are, up to snuff for a technology-based organization. So Sid Pandey and is just chairing this committee. He's actually with Deloitte in his own private, or his day-to-day job. He's an excellent leader. He comes from our Vanguard cabinet as well. But the goals are outlined there in the charter agreement. Podio is one of the applications that we used. You probably never heard of it unless you've been active in URISA. But they've made some changes to it, so we're discussing how do we make a shift away from that. Connect membership engagement. If you are a member of URISA, you have the ability to log and connect and join groups, chat groups, discussions, and that type of thing. I would encourage you to actually do that. As a chapter, you also have a page to make, to post things, blog or just upcoming events. It's just another way to spread the word of chapter offerings is through this Connect. As I mentioned previously, the learning management system is one of the things that we're looking to invest in for our professional education committee. And then AGOL and hub management. Esri is, they're a large sponsor of us. I have my shirt on that I actually wore to the UC and won the, it was a SAG award. And I wore this shirt to take the picture with Jack. And Wendy Nelson, our executive director, said, he's going to say something about your shirt. I guarantee it. Sure enough, I walked up and he said, he pointed to my shirt. He goes, this organization's been instrumental in my career. Well, when you think about it, URISA's actually been around for 61 years. It's actually been around longer than Esri has. I believe Esri's been around for in the 50s, right? So 50 years or so. They are, one of our largest benefactors, I guess, to say that. So they've offered us this AGOL account and hub management, and I would not say unlimited credits, but they've made it so that I don't know that would ever exceed or even get close to the ceiling of the offering that they've given to us for the organization to utilize. So it's just really, as anybody on the call knows, that managing the environment is the tricky part, right? So so that's one of the things that this tech committee will be doing. Again, next offerings coming up is the GIS Valtech. So if you're in land records or appraisal or anything related to that, Charlotte, North Carolina, April 8th through the 11th. The only downside to the 8th through the 11th is that it's occurring on the eclipse. So if you want to go to that, plan your travel accordingly. It will not be in Charlotte, North Carolina. I do not believe, yes, I know that they're not, because their total eclipse will actually be occurring here in Cleveland. And it's interesting, that's an interesting fact, because at our LEAP conference in February, our EMA folks are actually going to be doing a presentation about their preparedness for the full eclipse and how GIS plays a part in that, right? So there's a lot of preparation from an emergency management standpoint that maybe some of you are aware of. And what's I guess to add insult to injury, the Cleveland Guardians decided to have their home opener on the 8th of April as well. So I'm not coming to work that day. And then finally, GIS Pro 2024, Portland, Maine. If you like lobster, this is the place for you. I love lobster, and I believe the fall is the best time of year. I think it's the cheapest that you can get it per pound. I know that spring is the most expensive. Yeah, look at Portland, Maine. And again, it's hosted by our New England chapter. They're actually going to help run this. I'm actually looking forward to it. That's where my presidency will end and John Nolte's presidency will begin. So here's me. Again, I am a certified planner, GISP as well. I'm the board president. I am the administrator here at Cuyahoga County, but I'm also on LinkedIn. So you can take a picture of that link in with me. I try to post funny memes, actually, related to GIS and URISA, as people will tell you. Then I also have a URISA email address. So hit me up there if you have any questions about the presentation or want to become involved. We love our members, but we love our volunteers more. It really is a volunteer-run, member-run organization. So, hopefully there's something that I've touched on, or even if I haven't, you've seen something in this presentation that I didn't elaborate on, but you have more interest in, email me. I'll be happy to put you in touch with the people that can facilitate you becoming more active in the organization of URISA. And so to finish this off, this is Texas URISA slide, and I will open the floor for questions if there are any. I don't know, Jose, if there's anything you need to speak to this slide. So thank you, everybody, for attending. I really appreciate the time that we've had together.
Well, thank you so much, Tom. That was really informative. And for all those that are in Texas, it sounds like we got to step up our game. I think California is giving us a run for our money. With that being said, we do have a few questions in the chat. Let's see. Someone wanted to know how they can get in touch with their local chapter, specifically their Caribbean chapter. Looks like someone may have answered. Sarah Taylor took care of that.
Yeah, Sarah Taylor is she's very involved at the national level, and she was your former CDRC chair. Sarah, we see each other a lot at events. So yeah, definitely, you got a great resource there.
Next question. Are you considering ways to create an affiliate status for existing GIS organizations? And they specified the Kansas Association of Mappers, Arkansas GIS User Forums, Nebraska GIS LIS.
Absolutely. So that's part of that discussion. So when we put together the affiliation documentation, one of the things that we decided that we were going to carve out of that discussion was anything chapter similar, right? So URISA's chapter similar, but let me use Kentucky and Tennessee as an example, right? So Kentucky has what's called CAMP, which is their state GIS association, and Tennessee has TNGIC. There was a Chesapeake chapter in those two states, right? But it folded because really there was there was already a presence for GIS organizations, right, running at the state level. So one of the things that we want to discuss at the chapter level is how do we get URISA members, really the people that are interested at the national level, to sort of coalesce around a group and be URISA members attending CAMP and TNGIC, right? So that is where we see the relationship sort of building, right? We definitely have the ability to right now between the organizations is sort of share our educational offerings and things like that. But to come up with a more formal agreement, between the two, we have what's called the chapter charter, which means your organization is really the chapter, like Texas, follows prescribed bylaws, other organizational structural things that are pre-described by URISA organization. We don't believe that groups like TNGIC or CAMP, the ones that I'm familiar with, would necessarily be interested in becoming a chartered URISA chapter, right? So we've got to figure out a way to actually make that work. I will use the Ohio Valley chapter as an example. There's a group in Pennsylvania called Keystone GIS, which is state level, but we're a regional level. So we are Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania. We call ourselves the Ohio Valley chapter. We're bringing in the URISA perspective, the national level, right? And members of URISA to the Pennsylvania Keystone GIS. So one of the things that I'm actually going to do is go over and do presentations on URISA to their statewide conference. So there is something there, but we're working on it as it relates to the chapter level, right? So local level, chapter level, how do we make that connection?
Awesome. Well, let's see. Let's keep going here. Next on the list, how likely am I to be accepted for the mentor-mentee program if I graduated with my Bachelor's of Science this last August? And if so, is there a certain demographic the program is targeting?
The program is so there. It runs in a cycle. Okay, so if I go back to that slide and you go to this, the mentor mentee. Hold on. Oh, yes. So if you go to that QR code, just go out to the website and URISA website, urisa.org. The mentoring network, when it opens, they will accept anybody into the program, right? So the trick is it matching that mentee with the mentor, right? So you being a recent graduate, sometimes a mentor will take on two mentees or more, right? So you would never be not accepted into the program, right? You'll have to probably work with somebody who's splitting time with other mentors, but definitely please sign up when the application process is open. You will be accepted, and we're going to try to match you up with the perfect person that we believe would give you the best insight or things that maybe you're looking for. So the application is pretty fully worked out to go there.
Awesome. Let's see. This question might round out the overall, but let's see. Do you have any programs or offerings aimed at people re-entering the workforce or making a mid-career shift to GIS?
So that's a great and it is an awesome question, because the Vanguard cabinet for the longest time would consider themselves young and emerging professionals, right? So the emerging side of it, right? So the consideration to those that are making a mid-career change, yes, that is something that we have definitely discussed. I don't know that we've actually got a lot of meat on that bone, but I will tell you that that's something that I think we definitely want to take a look at, because what you're seeing in the industry, at least that's from my perspective, GIS as a profession or GIS as a tool. A lot more people are coming to GIS as a tool, right? So those that are coming to it from what I would consider an adjacent industry, finding GIS, falling in love with GIS, and really sort of taking their career in a different direction based on their love of this all things spatial, right? And so as the board comes and develops strategy, that's one of the things that we're trying to do is figure out who we are. I think the emerging professional is definitely something that we need to strongly put into this formula of who we serve, right? Because of that fact, because of the fact that people are making the shift based on into GIS based on being adjacent, dabbling, and then falling in love with the technology. So.
Awesome. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yes.
Beautiful. So those are some really good questions. I believe those are the questions we have so far.
Okay.
And if there's anything else anybody else would like to ask, your email is right here on the screen, so you can
There is.
take a photo of this. You can, grab him on LinkedIn. You can reach him wherever y'all want. He's very he's very responsive, so
Yes.
you're good there. And thank you everyone for joining us. We do have a hard stop for 1 o'clock today.
Yeah.
And Tom, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you coming out and doing this talk with us.
Thank you for the invitation, and I appreciate everybody for attending.
Awesome. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you so
Take
much.
care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye now.